You found it. Your home for the best content on your favorite team, the Fighting Tigers of LSU. Do us a favor, subscribe to the channel, leave your comments below, and be sure to smash that like button.
Just seeing a lot of growth, right? I think, the big thing coming into this offseason was about developing our identity as an offense and really trying to start that from inside out. Right? Everything's got to start from inside out, from the offensive line out to the perimeter. And we want to be known as a physical football team that's explosive on the perimeter. And I think as we watch throughout spring practice, a lot of those things have been showing up.
This LSU offensive coordinator Joe Sloan, going to have to get used to saying that. LSU offensive coordinator Joe Sloan meeting with reporters here on Tuesday for the first time in spring practice. And, this is going to be a little bit of a feeling out period. Obviously, it's a co-offensive coordinator system by title with Sloan and Cortez Hankton, but we know Joe Sloan's calling the plays. And when the offensive coordinator met with reporters on Tuesday, it was Joe Sloan. So I think we can understand how the responsibilities there are going to be divvied up. Some of the things that I was interested in hearing from Joe are his take on some of the position battles, and then a lot of scheme and style. We got used to Brian Kelly and Mike Denbrock and their synergy because, remember, those two guys had worked together before. Like, you had a large enough sample from Brian Kelly and Mike Denbrock together at Notre Dame, and then bringing Denbrock to Baton Rouge, and you had 2 years with Denbrock and Jayden Daniels as the quarterback. So we knew stylistically and functionally what the offense was going to look like, especially with Jayden at quarterback, right? Where Jayden's differentiator, his dynamic ability was his running ability. And Jayden was a 1,000-yard rusher this past year. You could call design plays for him, but when a play broke down, you knew Jayden could take off. That dynamic no longer exists within the offense because Garrett is not a running threat and is not going to be a running threat. So that's part of it. But Joe was also asked how much of Mike Denbrock's offense will he keep in place. And I want to remind you before we play this, Joe Sloan has been an offensive coordinator before. He was an OC at Louisiana Tech and initially did not call plays as the OC there with Skip Holtz, and then did for 2 seasons. So he's been an OC both sort of in title and as the primary play caller. So he has run an offense before. So how much of Denbrock's offense do you retain?
The nuts and bolts of what we do and the foundation of what we do was set here over the last couple of years, right? When Coach Denbrock came in and we put this offense into effect. And what we've done as an offensive staff, we have 4 of us that are still here. So a lot of that carryover. Plus we have a lot of guys who played in our offense the last 2 years. So we want to keep the building blocks of who we are. But right, no matter who's talking to you at this podium, you got to build your offense around the personnel that you have. We're doing that, right? We're growing, and just like we did 2 years ago going into this past year and making an evaluation of where we're at and what we needed to do, we've sitting down as an offensive staff and we're continuing to do the same thing.
That's what tells me you build the offense, or the building blocks are there, but you build your offense around the personnel you have. Well, you don't have Jayden Daniels anymore, meaning the dynamic, the dimension of a running quarterback is eliminated. So for me, the most interesting part of this offense for me this year is going to be, how do you replace Jayden Daniels' carries? What does that look like for LSU in 2024 when you no longer have Jayden Daniels running the football? Because those offensive touches are going to go somewhere. And not that they were all design runs for Jayden, but does that mean you go from a balanced rushing attack to something that looks more like 65-35? Because on the plays where an offense is breaking down and Jayden might have, or a play is breaking down, Jayden might have taken off, does Garrett now throw the ball away? Or does he force a ball downfield? Jayden Daniels ran the ball 135 times last year. He was not only your leading rusher at 1,100 yards, but in rushing attempts. He had 135 attempts. Logan Diggs was second with 119. So those 135 running plays for Jayden Daniels, what do those translate into in 2024? Does that become a disproportionate amount of passes? Or do you have a different style of running game? My assumption is those are going to become short passes. You know this. We all watch football. The passing game is an extension of the running game, right? Like how the Saints use Alvin Kamara. He gets 80 receptions. Well, who gets those receptions? I don't know if it's Josh Williams or Caleb Jackson, your traditional running backs, but I think your slot receiver might be that this year. Again, that's 135 offensive snaps. That's 10 snaps per game that are going to go from your quarterback running it to something else. So who are those people? That's why I think the receiver position battle is the most interesting. Like, I can look at the offense and there are givens. I know who my starting offensive line is game one, right now. DJ Chester is your center. You got Miles Frazier, Garrett Dellinger as your guards, and you've got, in my opinion, the best tackle combination in college football. Two guys in Will Campbell, Emory Jones, that I think next year at this time we're talking about as first-round draft picks. So your offensive line is set. I know Mason Taylor is the starting tight end.
Mason Taylor!
Thank you. And I know that, you surprise me sometimes. I forget about it. Todd Peterson. And I know that
Ted Peterson.
Caught him napping. And I know, see, you did that to me, I did it to you. I know that Josh Williams, Caleb Jackson are going to be your running backs. I think Josh Williams takes the first snap, but those guys are both going to be interchangeable and carry the ball a ton. What I don't know is my receiver order. Like, I know Kyron Lacey's going to be on the field, and they're going to push the ball to him, and they're going to give him every opportunity to be the number one. After that, I don't know. I'm pumped to watch Chris Hilton because that's a former top 100 overall prospect, top 50 overall prospect who's waited his turn behind Kayshon Boutte and obviously Malik Nabers and Brian Thomas and so many talented guys that have come through this program. And now it's like, okay, here's your turn. What are you going to make of it? I'm excited to see Chris Hilton. I think the young guys like Kyle Parker, Shelton Sampson, super high ceilings. Can they emerge this year? I don't know. Aaron Anderson, former five-star, transferred in from Bama last year, didn't really make much of an impact. On the season, Aaron Anderson had 12 catches for 59 yards. That was it. Is this the year where could Aaron Anderson be that guy? That's the extension of the running game. Again, remember, 135 rushing attempts for Jayden Daniels. Those snaps have to go somewhere. Where do they go? Who is going to be your short passing game, your flare passes, your screens? Who is going to be the beneficiary of those reps? Maybe it's one of the two transfer receivers. And both of them Joe Sloan talked about on Tuesday for the first time. First, CJ Daniels, the Liberty transfer, who again is coming off a year at Liberty where he caught 55 balls for over 1,000 yards. He averaged 19.4 yards per reception. That is, you're talking 19 yards a catch. That is explosive. That is dynamic. That is game-breaking. Can it transfer over to the SEC?
CJ just brings such a level of consistency. You can see the experience and how he plays. He's an extremely smart player, and he's physical, and he is strong through the catch. I think he's going to be a huge piece for what we're doing in the fall and putting him in different positions where he can use his strengths. And I think when you look at, obviously, right, we spoke about the returners a little bit, but CJ, the level of leadership that he's brought to the room and consistent work habits, it's been really good to see. And the challenging thing for him is he's learning. Some of these other guys who have been here, they've run these plays multiple times. He's learning. So every day out there, he's learning and he's getting better. And as we've watched through spring, just our ability to say, hey, we need a big catch, we can go his way, and he continues to produce.
It's a veteran guy who's done it, right? CJ Daniels has played college football. This is his 5th year in college football. He was a freshman in the COVID year. So he's taking advantage of the COVID year to come back and play a 5th college season. So it's like it is a similar situation to what we saw with a guy like Keon Coleman last year. Braden Fisk is a better example. Western Michigan, great player, decides, you know what? NIL, transfer portal, let me go to a Power 5, prove I could play at that level, boost my draft stock. That's what CJ Daniels is doing right here. He's at Liberty, 1,000-yard receiver, 19 yards a catch. By the way, Malik Nabers and Brian Thomas each averaged 17 yards per catch last year. So you're talking about a guy who has game-breaking ability. So is C.J. Daniels that guy? And the other one, of course, is Xavier Thomas, who was Mississippi State's leading receiver. Now, Mississippi State's offense stunk last year, but Xavier Thomas had 40 catches for 500 yards, 12 yards a catch, but he was Mississippi State's leading guy. It's a guy who's got 2 years of experience in college football under his belt. Here was Joe Sloan on Xavier.
Xavion's explosive. You can just see he has such a feel for space and holes. He's made some really big plays down the field. He's got a lot of speed, but I think ultimately, right, trying to get him the ball in space and maybe create punt returns on offense. And we'll have the ability to do that with him and as well with Aaron. I think Aaron's played a really good football as well. And Kyle Parker, different guys who have the ability to maybe work small areas. But Xavion's been just a treat to have here. And again, I speak to his level of toughness, and I think that's been what's probably been the most exciting for our offensive staff and those two guys walking in. They're both tough football players.
Ding, ding, ding. Did you hear him? Get the ball in space, punt return on offense. I love that phrasing because you get the imagery. What's the point of a punt return? Catch the ball, make a guy miss in space, and make a big play out of it. That's what the screen game is. Catch the ball on the perimeter, make a guy miss, and get upfield. Like, that's what he's talking about. So when I look at those two guys, I'm going, okay, that's again, and I don't have the answer. We're all gonna watch this and see it together. So it'll be a fascinating test case. And they keep leaning on experience. Every time the media is out there, your first receivers are Kyron Lacey, Chris Hilton, Aaron Anderson. As it should be. They're the incumbents. They should get the first crack. And then it's the transfers and the young guys. Cool. How does that evolve in fall camp? And then when you actually start playing games, do we see that start to change? Make these guys earn it. But my biggest question in this offense, Nussmeier's your starter at quarterback. You know who your top two running backs are going to be. Your offensive line is set. Your tight end is set. You got a whole bunch of receivers that not only have to replace the production of Malik Nabers, Brian Thomas, but you've got to replace 10 rushing attempts per game, 135 attempts from the season from your quarterback, which are those offensive plays are not going to be your quarterback this year. I mean, Garrett Nussmeier ain't carrying the ball 135 times. So where are those attempts going to go? Where are those touches going to go? I think it's to your slot receivers as an extension of the running game. And I think those two guys I just mentioned that Joe Sloan talked about are like 1A, 1B candidates along with Aaron Anderson to be the explosive parts of that offense to get that opportunity. It's going to be a fascinating thing to watch as it evolves. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.